Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salam ala ashraf al-anbiya wal mursaleen Muhammadu Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam tasliman kathiran kathira. First of all, I would like to thank Marana for his choice of the ayat which he made, mashallah. That's exactly what was in my mind as well. I want to do this. We have until 10 o'clock. So now it's 8 close to 8:30. I don't want to lecture you because I don't think you need lectures, and I don't think anybody likes a lecture, even though they might say they like it. What I would like to do is to ask or share with you, not even ask you questions, but share with you some questions which are also in my mind. So all of us can together think about those things and put some thoughts onto these charts. And then perhaps from that we build a kind of strategy going forward. Now that's a big ask for the time given. So as long as we get it started somewhere, we leave it with that. And inshallah, Allah Ta'ala will give us opportunities to take it forward in more detail. One thing for sure, which is that we are facing a crisis in education, the like of which we meaning humanity, has never faced before. The closest sort of example I can think of when there was a crisis in education, even though it wasn't called by that name, was at the beginning and during the Industrial Revolution. So we were talking about 1748 or something like that. The crisis that happened at that time was that, broadly and generally speaking, the world changed from being an agrarian society to becoming an industrialized society. The world prior to that was by and large an agrarian world, and arising out of the agrarian economies was trade. So you had farmers, you had artisans, and you had traders. So these were the three basic means of livelihood and ways of contributing or participating in the economy that existed. But come the Industrial Revolution, when machines were invented, and especially when the manufacturing method, the assembly line, was invented, it completely destroyed this world. So to give you a very brief idea, in an agrarian economy, the day begins when the sun rises, and the day ends when the sun sets. In an industrial economy, the day begins when your shift begins in the factory. And if you are on the 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. shift, then your day begins at 2 p.m. and your day ends at 10 p.m. If you are in the 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. or whatever, 8 hours, then that's your day. So your day is by the clock. It's not by the sun and the moon. One aspect of that is today in our masajid, we have this, frankly, I feel like laughing, the exact to the dot. Asr is at 5:30. You wait until that needle of the goes to 5. Allahu Akbar. But that is an outcome. If you think about that, that has nothing to do with Islam. That's an outcome of the Industrial Revolution from 1748 or 1700, early 17th century, is carrying on in a completely unrelated thing, which is your masjid. They might say, what does the masjid got to do? It has everything to do with it, because it is also subject to the same mental change that happened thanks to the Industrial Revolution. So the time of day changed. We are no longer connected with the sun and the moon and the stars, and no longer connected with that, we are connected with the clock. Number one. Second thing which changed was in the industrial, in that time, because thanks to the Industrial Revolution, was the teachers, within quotes, changed. So in an agrarian economy, there were two teachers, the father and the mother. So the father taught usually the boys, right, or almost always the boys, skills to earn a living. So how to plow the field, how do you decide when is the right time to plant the seed, irrigation, animal husbandry, your bullocks and your horses, your plowshares, and so on and so on and so on. Everything to do with the outside world, outside the home, engaging in economic activity to earn a living. Right? Bring it to the Sirah, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, what did he do as a child? He grazed sheep. When he grew up to a certain age, he would accompany his uncle and his grandfather on business trips. Outside the house. This is what the boys learned from their fathers. Fathers, by fathers I mean that generation, so father, uncle, grandfather, whoever, right? The girls, on the other hand, learned homemaking skills. So sewing and cooking and cleaning the house. Now you might say cleaning the house is hardly a skill. You try and do it and you'll know how much of a skill it is. Seriously, I'm telling you, it's not a joke. They also learned whatever kind of medicine, so which herbs are good if something happens, the child is crying at night, he has colic, he has a stomach ache, what to give to the child, and so on. So all of that, how to make a beautiful home. This was taught to the girls. Now, industrial revolution happened, so people left their farms, and to give you an example from, say from America, they left their farms and they went off to Detroit, for example, right? And there, what happened to the teachers? They've gone. The teachers changed. And our current school system was born then. One teacher with 30, 40, 50, 60 students in the class. And if you think 60 is too much, come to India and I'll show you more. Right? Now, it changed in another way, which is that when the parents were the teachers, the parents also taught the children culture, their language, their religion, their tahzeeb, right? Thaqafa. The word thaqafa comes from musaqqaf, right? And musaqqaf means, or used to mean, somebody who is honorable, who is knowledgeable, who is worthy of respect. But we have converted thaqafat to mean reading and writing. Only. So they learned all this culture, right? Which is very important. But when they came to the schooling system in the Industrial Revolution, the teacher who's teaching is not necessarily from your culture, not your religion, can be anybody. And the students there are also a mixture of students from different cultures and so on and so forth. I'm not saying that is bad or good. I'm just explaining to you what the situation is. So now what does the teacher teach? If the teacher is a Christian, what does he teach? If the teacher is a Muslim, what does he teach? If the teacher is an atheist, what does he teach? And what are the children taking away from there? Now the point therefore is, the Industrial Revolution was not just about building, dinky toys on assembly lines or whatever they were building. It was a complete revamp and change of society in multiple aspects, which I'm sure nobody at that time even imagined that this would happen. It just happened. People's lifestyles changed. Then, because the Industrial Revolution was successful, they ran out of workers. Because the men went to work, women stayed at home taking care of children. There were only that many men. So what do? So bring the women into the workplace. Now you had a problem. Because the women in the workplace, if they dressed the way that they were dressed at the time, were a hazard. Because if you are wearing a long skirt all the way down to your ankles, if you have your head covered, you have a veil, you are wearing loose clothing, you are a hazard. Because the clothing will get caught in the machinery, you get sucked in, you die, I have to stop the assembly line. So I'm losing money. Plus I have to pay you compensation. So what must we do? Change women's fashion. So clothing which clings to the body is safer around machinery than clothing which is loose. Nothing to do with religion. Nothing to do with social norms. It has to do with industrial practice. Take the veil off, because loose clothing, any loose clothing, whether it's from the head or anywhere else, cut your hair short, tie it up, wear a cap, take off the veil, take off loose clothing, wear tight clothing. Complete women's fashion, complete women's clothing changed thanks to the Industrial Revolution. Now, very interesting also how these messages were given. You also needed to take the woman out of the house. Don't worry about raising children and so on. Come and work in the factory. Now, any person with any sense of logic, if you put them down and say, tell me which is more significant, more important, more worthwhile, more noble, raising the next generation or working in a call center or working on a piece of machinery or doing something like, which is better, which is more noble? What will they say? So you had to change that in the head. You had to change that. So what did they say? They said it's a matter of your freedom, your significance. You are an unpaid slave in the house. So we got to change that. We cannot have you as an unpaid slave in the house. Go out and work. Express yourself. So the woman now who has a problem listening to her husband has no problem listening to somebody who is completely unrelated, who is her boss. Which woman do you know in the workplace will say to her boss, I don't like that tone of voice. You can't talk to me like this. Eh? Why not? So, the change was in the mind. Culture changed. Social norms changed. Man-woman relationships changed. Husband-wife relationships changed. Children-parent relationships changed. In the agrarian economy, the father, even today, if you go into the traditional, in Africa as well as in India, if you go into the traditional lands, you see how an African, a Zulu or a Shangan or a Xhosa child greets elders. Forget about children. This is something which always strikes me when I travel. Alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala takes me to all over the world. When I travel to cultures like this, when I come to Africa, when I come to South Africa, just now I was in Ethiopia as well, or when I go to Saudi and other places, just this white beard, that security guard in the airport, in Lanseria just now when we came yesterday, the man, he says, Baba, come here. Respectfully, Baba meaning father, come here. Can you put your hand like this? Can I search you? Most welcome. And there was a woman there, again security officer, police woman, who tells my wife, Amma, come. Mama, come forward. You won't find this in America, believe me. You won't find this in Western economy, Western societies. Respect that comes with age. With the Industrial Revolution, all of this went. Because, as I said, the teacher the father was not just today the father is the ATM machine and the mother is the card. Huh? Not so. There was a respect for the. That's why I am one of those who's I won't say I'm dead against it, but I definitely don't think it's a great idea to get your children to learn the Quran in the maktab or from a ustad or your imam. Huh? So I'm not against the maktab system. I set up the first maktab in our masjid in Western Mass. But I'm saying this is like somebody went to Maulana Abul Hasan, Abul al-Maududi, rahmatullah alayh. Somebody went to him and they said, Hazrat, we have started an orphanage and please, we want you to come and inaugurate it. He said, I refuse, I will not come. So shut it down. I said, this is going. We thought we were doing a good thing, starting an orphanage, and you are saying shut it down and you will not inaugurate. He said, to put an orphan into an orphanage makes him feel more lonely and more out of society. You are supposed to raise orphans in your homes. Yeah? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only prohibited us from giving the orphan our name. Didn't stop you from raising them. And people were in the time of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, which orphanage was there? Yatim khana tha koi? So this is what happened. The parents, that's why I say, teach your children Quran yourself. That has two benefits. First of all, you learn it. People can't read. They cannot read Surah Al-Fatiha correctly. Why? Because you never learned. Your children are going to the maktab. So children are learning Quran, the children read Quran better than the parents, and the parents don't feel ashamed. नहीं सोच नहीं बात है ना. When somebody comes, बच्चे को बोला, come बेटा बैठ, कोई कुरान सुना. So your little 8-year-old kid or 7-year-old kid is reading beautifully, mashallah, may Allah bless them. They read beautifully. You ask the father, अब आप सुनाइए. I mean, we don't say this and we should not say it also because you don't want to embarrass people. But really, you should feel for yourself. I mean, if I cannot read Quran as good as my 10-year-old or my 5-year-old, then there's something seriously wrong, isn't it? In any society, take out the Maulanas, ask the others. क्या खाली Maulana Musamman है क्या दूसरे नहीं है? I mean, others are not Muslim. So move them. Please read. You can't read. That is because you never learn. Now, if you teach your own child Quran, I'm talking only about recitation, then you are forced to learn it yourself, which is alhamdulillah, wonderful thing. And you teach. And then what happens is, this whole issue of children not respecting the parents and generation, all this will vanish because you are the teacher of the Quran for the child. How will he not respect you? There's a wonderful documentary. In Egypt, they have this annual Quran recitation competition. So there's this wonderful documentary where they traced I think about 7 or 8 children from different parts of the world. There's somebody from Uzbekistan and there's somebody from Sudan and someone from Somalia and from Bangladesh and India and so on. So there's a whole bunch of it. So little kids, they are about maybe 7, 8 years old. All of them are Huffaz. And they are participating in this competition in Egypt, in Al-Azhar. So they trace this documentary. It's a very nice documentary which I recommend all of you see it. I think it's very useful to see. But there's one little sequence in that which literally, I sort of wept when I saw that. And that is this Somali father, and also tall, slim and very tall. So this Somali father, and he's got this little kid who's taking part in the competition. He's about maybe 8 years old. They're walking along the beach on the sand, barefoot, father and son. They're walking along the beach. The son is reciting, and the father is listening. So the son is doing his dawra for what is hifz, and the father is also hafiz. And the father is listening, and occasionally he will correct him because the kid knows what to do. He's reading well. Both of them walking in the sand, the waves washing their feet. Now you take that father and son combination, and I will tell you that son will never destroy that father. So question doesn't arise. Eh? Throughout his upbringing, his day begins after Salatul Fajr, walking with his father on the beach, with the waves washing their feet, and he's reciting Quran and his father is listening. This changed with the Industrial Revolution. So the children looking up to their parents as role models, as ideals, as heroes, disappeared, vanished. The child no longer understood, what does my father do? When he was walking behind the plow with his father, the son understood what the father did. He understood the complexity of it. He understood the difficulty of it. Problems happened. He understood how to solve those problems. If he got stuck, he knew how to unstick. Likewise, for the girl, she would work with her mother. She would see what was happening. The mother was her role model, was the hero, the heroine. But with the Industrial Revolution, the mother went to work in the factory, the father went to work in the factory. They came at different odd times. There is something in the West called the latchkey kid. Have you heard this term? The latchkey kid. You know what the latchkey kid is? There's this child who has the house front door key on a collar. They have the key has a strap, and the strap is around their neck, and that, like they have nowadays for name tags, when you go to work in somewhere, lanyards, right? I consistently refused to use lanyards. Throughout my consulting practice, I used to throw them away. I said, I'm not a dog. I said very clearly, I will not wear this bloody collar. And they said, no, but our chairman wears it. Maybe he's a dog, I'm not. What? Yeah, I'm not putting something on my neck. Kids would have, on a lanyard, they would have a key. The school bus would drop them off. And this happens to this day. School bus drops them off because at that time, mother and father both are out at work. They're not at home. And I haven't even come to the single parent issue, so there's time to go. They would be dropped off. The kid comes, unlocks his or her own house door, goes in, shuts the door, and people now start taking pride in things which are actually evil things. They have normalized it and they take pride in. My child is so responsible. He opens the door, he locks it, makes sure the door is locked. Then he goes and he takes the thing out of the fridge and he heats it in the microwave, and this little kid knows how to. You must say, Lanatullah alaik. You should be ashamed of saying this. You're showing this to me now as a great thing of how well trained your kid is. You should be ashamed of this. Why is your child doing this? Why does your little child have to come home to an empty house? Yatim hai, uski amma mar gayi, uska baap mar gaya, kya hua? What is why is he coming to an empty house? Because I am fulfilling myself in the outer world. This is what happened. And as I said, this is nothing compared to what you and I are seeing and going to see going forward in today's world, specifically with AI. Because today in the world, and the world going forward, there are three kinds of people. So I want you to slot yourself wherever you think you belong. Three kinds of people. There are people who use AI. In its mildest normal form is social media. Mildest normal form is chat GPT, which you use to, nowadays everybody seems to use them to write emails and stuff. You don't need to think anymore. You've forgotten how to write. The beautiful connection between handwriting and the brain processing that is gone, finished. I will read for you a piece which somebody wrote, and you will appreciate it in a minute. So, users and consumers of AI. Right? So this is the vast majority of people. Then there is a small elite group, which will always be small because of what it is, which is people who create that AI, who actually write the programs, who actually create AI, who create. In that, I will also include people who create content on social media, and by that I don't mean these influencers and all this garbage. I'm talking about the actual technical people who write the algorithms and so on in that context. There's a small elite group. Then there is a super small elite group who are the funders of all this, who have the money, who have the money to pay the creators of AI. And here we're talking about big money. We're not talking about millions of dollars. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. Very small elite group. Now, why must you understand this link? Because what that AI will do, or what that AI is being created to do, does not depend on the consumer, does not depend on the vast majority, does not depend on what is good for the vast majority, does not depend on what that vast majority actually wants. It does not even depend on the person who is creating that, the technical part of that AI. It depends on what the person with the money wants. And who's the person with the money? One of them is one of yours. Elon Musk. Completely immoral. Who said, I want to go to Jahannam. I want to go to hell. They are the people. And the others with him are no better. You've got Jeff Bezos. You've got Bill Gates. These are people who the Epstein files, opened the curtain on them. And the very fact that nothing happens shows the kind of power they have. Who was adversely affected by the Epstein files? Apart from obviously the victims of that, which were, I don't even want to talk about those things. This is, it's painful for me physically to speak about any of those things. But we all of us know what we're talking about. This is the world you're looking at. And therefore, with this preamble, I want to leave you with a couple of questions, and then let's see what you have to say, because as I said, I don't want to lecture. My first question is, therefore, in the name of education, what should we equip students for?